So I'm going to be talking about TRON ARES, the review of the movie. The movie, I give it out of a 10. I give him like a 5 or a 6. And let me tell you why. So TRON ARES follows this story of like AI. To make the story short, AI merges with humankind and humans. And there's this character played by Jared Leto named ARES, who is a computer program that wants to become a human. So the movie is a little bit awkward because they merged the real world with the AI computer world. So it's kind of awkward a little bit because obviously in the video game world there's no limits and you can do whatever you want, right? You can kill whoever you want and you can do whatever you want, right? Because it's a video game, right? And there's no limits, right? But then in this movie, they decided to merge the real world with the AI video game world. And it was very awkward because there was like real people in the streets and there was buildings, and it was kind of awkward, like putting video game characters into like a real world setting, right? Because you can't kill people and destroy buildings and things like that. And then probably filming a movie in like the real world, it was probably really hard, right? So in terms of like cinematics for TRON ARES, it was quite disappointing compared to Tron Legacy. Tron Legacy, when it came to like cinematics and like visually, it was more visually stunning because it had neon light. They were inside a video game and it had neon lights, and there was no limits, and you had disc wars and racing, motorcycle racing, action-packed scenes inside of a video game. And unfortunately, in Tron Ares, pues, that falls short and it falls flat because they are merged with the real world, and it's just not as good as Tron Legacy in terms of like cinematography, like visuals and things like that. So when it comes to the story arc is very beautiful because they want to Tron Ares, that's played by Jared Leto. So he's this computer program, AI, robotic figure that has no emotions, right? But then he discovers through this human girl named Eve, he discovers what being a human being is. Como que he starts to like discover what being human is and what it means to be human. And he starts to realize that he wants to be more than just a computer. He wants to be a human. He wants to be human because he saw Eve's life and he wanted to experience that. So there's a missed opportunity in the movie plot-wise, because the whole premise of the movie is that Tron Ares wants to become human because he was a computer and he saw Eve's life and he wants to become human. But then At the end of the movie, they end up just being friends, and there's a missed opportunity there. And, because in the movie, like Eve and Tron, they bond and they get to know each other. Like Eve gets to know Jared Leto and Tron Ares, and then Jared Leto gets to meet Eve, and they get to know each other and they get to bond. And there's a missed opportunity to make like a love story right there, and that would be a perfect plot twist or whatever, because that's what being human is, falling in love, anger, emotions, crying, things like that. And after all, the whole premise is about, Jared Leto wanting to become human, right? And I think a love story with Eve would have been a perfect ending, but they didn't do that. In the at the end of the movie, they just end up being friends, which makes things even more awkward, right? You know, and then Jared Leto's, his acting just falls flat. I guess that's why people are talking shit about him and they don't like him or whatever. And the movie's like receiving bad reviews because, his acting is very robotic. It makes sense, for like the computer character, it makes sense. Pero once he transitions into like a human, he needs to portray emotion. And I feel like falling in love with Eve would have been the perfect transition to becoming a human and like building a relationship with her, or whatever. So yeah, his acting just falls flat. It's just, it stays the same throughout the whole story, and he really does seem like a robot and like a computer throughout the whole movie. There's no real change, where it should be. There should be change because that's the premise. So yeah, overall, Tron Ares is story wise is a very beautiful story, pero cinematically, and visually, it's very disappointing because they mix the human world with the computer world, and there's so many limitations. And it was probably really hard to like film the movie, in like the streets of with cars and people and things like that and buildings.